Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to 22nd episode of Psychology Talks. And from wherever you're joining, a very warm welcome. And I hope you had a great day. And if you're joining live, uh, very warm welcome again. But if you're watching it as a replay, I really appreciate your efforts for joining today. So, today's topic is something that a lot of people actually talk about these days. I must say, it's sort of a buzzword these days, as everybody talks about impact. And we hear a lot about impact these days. We hear this word from company mission statement, from media interviews, or from anywhere. Like if you watch the social media, you will hear this word a lot these days. Creating impact is clearly important and something we should all strive for. But what exactly does create impact mean? Here I would say that creating impact is not easy, but it's very simple. Be the change you wish to see in the world. This is the quote from Mahatma Gandhi. And perhaps you must have heard this a lot of time before me. But it's a beautiful sort of a sentiment, and it reminds us that everyone has the power and can create an impact in the world. But how to create impact is again a mystery. So, in today's episode, we will talk about how you can make your life in a way that it creates a meaningful impact in your life and in the lives around you. And that's why our guest of the show is someone who has created an impact already, a huge impact. He has actually won a Nobel Peace Prize in 2005. His name is Lameen Abdul Malik. His mission is to create an impact that leaves a legacy. He has devoted his life to helping people and bringing out positive change in the world. His goal is to touch a million of lives in 5 years and subsequently spearheaded effort to support that ethos. One of which is to launch Ideas, like IDAES, Ideas Cafe, a platform to source ideas to positively impact our world on health, sustainability, technology, and youth. He won Nobel Peace Prize in 2005 after 14 years of his like struggle, efforts, and continuous struggles. He focused on transferring the peaceful use of nuclear science and technology to meet its development goal in Africa. And he, of course, his personality is not just to gain benefit or have the benefit for himself. He wanted to contribute to the society. So whatever the money he received from that prize, he donated to establish a first cancer hospital in Zambia. And every year thousands of patients are treated in that hospital. So let's welcome this amazing personality today to our show and learn a lot from him. So hello, Lamin. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, my pleasure, Ambreen. Thanks a lot for inviting me. And I look forward to having a fruitful discussion with you this afternoon.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like I'm sure our um audience will learn a lot from you because you have like dedicated your life to create an impact, and you are living example of it. The way you have been leading like throughout your life, it's not just for yourself. You are continuously contributing to add more, um, to give a meaning sort of value to the society. So and that's amazing, and that's why we I invited you, so like our audience can learn that how they can add a meaningful value to the society and how they can better contribute to be a better citizen.
Inshallah, I'll be
So
able to help.
anyways, yeah, yeah. So let's see, like a lot of people have are already joined and they are saying hello to us. And like Zamachari is a very active member. Thank you for joining. Omar Hassan is also saying he's the CEO of Falcon International. Thanks for joining. Shoaib Khan has joined. Abdullah and Yahya and MD Rashid. And so thank you everyone for joining today. We're from different places of the world. So let's move to the discussion. However, like before moving to the discussion, just tell us a little bit more about yourself, that from where you started and what the struggles you faced during your journey.
Thanks, Sandrine. I'll try and, of course, I can speak about this for hours, but I'll try and
Yeah.
summarize it. So I'm actually half English, half Nigerian. So I grew up in Nigeria till I was about 12 years old. And even as a child, I mean, I posted about something, I think a couple of weeks ago about rethinking education. So, when I started school back, when I was about 5 or 6 years old, um, my first year of school, I just used to focus actually on drawing because I loved art and trying to express myself. And I actually had to do primary one twice. So, and it didn't really matter. I just loved drawing as a child. And I just don't understand why I had to be asked to add and subtract at that level at 5 years old. But what I used to really love drawing back then was I was really into comics, so I used to draw Spider-Man and Hulk. And then as I got older, to about 7 or 8 years old, I used to actually love drawing planes, aeroplanes. So there was always this sense of adventure. I think for myself, I actually wanted to be a pilot because I actually wanted to go to lots of different parts of the world, explore different environments. And actually, that was born initially, I think, from maybe my genetics. My grandfather actually left England when he was about 18 or 19 years old. And when he got to Nigeria, he just got off the ship and just said, "Oh, I'm going to settle here." So maybe that sense of adventure was already born inside me. And also, my mom used to work for an airline company back then, and she used to get tickets for like 10% of a ticket. So by the time I was 10 years old, I actually been to already 14 countries in my life. So I had this
Nice.
exposure of just wanting to learn from different people or from different cultures as well. And I also love food, and we'll talk about that later in terms of how that relates to coffee. But I think
Yeah.
just wanting to just explore different things. And one of the things I've been thinking about, people sometimes come to me and say, "Oh, can you help me get a job? I want to do this, I want to do that." And one of the things I always ask them is, "What were you passionate about in your life before you were 10 years old?" And they kind of look at me really strange and think, "What's that got to do with anything? I just want a job." I said, "Well, I can only advise you based on my experience. I can't just say, oh, go and get a job and do whatever," because I always believe, and we'll come to this later on, that if you're going to really live a truly fulfilling life and actually create meaningful impact, you actually have to know who you are and what your contribution is in this world. There's 7 billion of us in this world, and I think everybody is unique in a way. Even our fingerprints are unique. So I think we all have our unique kind of contribution to make in this world. So again, just to reiterate on your
Yeah.
question, so I grew up in Nigeria, so I was about 12 years old, and my dad actually got a job in Austria working in OPEC fund. So actually left Nigeria when I was 12. I went to school in England. Um, and then, just trying to get into that different culture, having been in Nigeria, going into England, it's a completely different culture, different climate. I was experiencing cold. Um, and then, eventually I went to university. And even in university, I always like to tell the story. I remember when I think last 2 weeks of university, and my tutor said to me, "Oh, what do you want to do, Lameen?" I said, "Oh, I like to work for the World Bank and change the world." And he goes, "Oh, that's too difficult. That's for really intelligent. That's for only really intelligent people. You're never going to work there." I just said,
Yeah.
"Okay, let's see." So eventually, I actually joined the British government in development, and from then on, as you know, in terms of the impact, being in a good team. I haven't shared this story that many times. When I actually first worked in the UN, after about 3 or 4 months, I actually wanted to quit. You know why? Because I actually don't like being micromanaged. So I had this super
Okay.
micromanager person. It was
Okay.
a contrast of being in the UK, because in the UK government back then, I had very good bosses. I have to say they were all female bosses, and they let
Yeah.
me really grow. They let me grow a lot. They trusted me a lot, and I came into this UN system where my boss was, French Arabic, and he was correcting my English. And when I was in British government, I used to actually write letters for the minister. And I said, "How can you
Yeah.
correct my English?" So after about 3 or 4 months, I was actually ready to quit. But obviously, I stayed on, worked with my team, my colleagues, and eventually, of course, in 2005, um, we were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for back then. Some of my colleagues were involved in trying to prevent, obviously trying to prevent the war, the second war in Iraq. But the other thing we
Yeah.
talked about earlier on was that, from the Nobel Peace Prize, we actually got awarded $1 million. And I was happy
Mhm.
that about $200,000 of that came to my project to help Zambia establish the first
Yeah.
um, cancer hospital, which treats about 1,500 patients at the moment. So, I mean, just to summarize, in terms of struggles, I think sometimes you have to be a little bit patient, and
Yeah.
also, but always keep in your heart what you really want to do. Never give up on that. No matter what anybody else tells you, just keep that close to your heart. Revisit that, even if it's on a daily basis or a weekly basis. Never ever
Yeah.
say you don't have enough time. I was reading a book today that said that if you ask someone to go and find money or change in their house, they will look for it. But that's it. It's like that with time. There's no such thing as I don't have enough time. It's like what you allocate priorities to is where the time will manifest. So I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
want
I
to
mean, it's amazing. Of course, you did say that like that you had a lot of struggles during your journey, and like micromanage, and you like failed in had to repeat it twice your primary schooling. So I think these are the failures. I mean, we don't say these as the failures. We would only say this like these are the struggles that make us stronger to and help us achieve our goal. So I think goal, as you said, that we need to have the passion, and I think what you said, you realize your passion at the early age, right? Like because you had the visit countries and you want to explore different cultures. So I think that was the point that gives you the ambition to do something for the people to understand them, and that's how I think you get into the creating a huge impact around for the people around you. So and like move just a second.
yeah. Can you hear me? I can.
I think there's some connectivity issue. Yeah, I think I'm back. I thought that it's like so. Anyways, what I was saying that basically like creating an impact is sometimes, of course, like you said, that it's not should be the goal, right? We should not just have a goal to create an impact. Like we should be ourselves first, and then think that how we can help people, and that's how it's an impact, right? So what do you think there
Yeah.
is a difference between creating an impact or creating an influence? Do you think there is a different or it's just the same thing?
Yeah. I actually think there's a difference because, I mean, if we look at the common terminology of influencer now, it's someone that, whether they're popular on
Yeah.
social media and people want to be influenced by that person to do something. But I question whether it's actually impactful. So for me, actually, I think it's a difference. I think when
Yeah.
you create an impact, and the different types of impact. So, even in my goal about I want to have a positive impact on at least one people, I have that word positive impact. But what exactly does that mean? If I go back, when I was at school, actually, one of the sports that I loved and I used to be, very good at it was actually throwing the javelin. And when you throw a javelin,
Okay.
people just think, oh, you just throw it and you throw it and that's it. But when you actually throw the javelin, you're supposed to keep your hand up for a while before
Okay.
you actually turn it or you put it down. And it's like, when you throw something, there's a bit of maybe a wind below that kind of channels that. Sometimes we maybe, like, in Islam we call something called baraka, a blessing in something that you do. So sometimes we can do something, but you might not be able to see an impact. But if you do something, I really believe that if you do something and you put your heart into it, there will be an impact, because it's not just about, one plus one is two. It could be one plus one might actually be three or four. So I think when you create an impact,
Yeah.
the difference between an impact and influence, impact is like it has the opportunity to actually create a change, or what we call transformation in your life, where you actually say, I've been doing this, but actually I want to transform my life and do something completely different, where you actually transform the way you actually think about something, the way you actually apply yourself to do something. And I think an impact is something that's more lasting, something that will last with you for many more years, rather than just something that's just here and now. There's something that you think about, oh, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I listened to this person and I've been trying to live my life like that, for example. Or, I
Yeah.
read about all these things, but I don't have time to do that. Why not? One of the mottos I had for last year, even though it was a pandemic, I said, if not now, then when? What are we
Yeah.
waiting for? I mean, life is like, everybody complains all the
Yeah.
time. Oh, it's so fast. I can't believe it's the end of the year. Just try, apply yourself, I think. And I think if you do it with a heart, people will actually see it and say, oh, wow, this person is actually talking differently. They're doing something a little bit differently. So just to summarize, I think when you do something impactful, going back to the comment you made earlier on, was that when you do something impactful, you're doing it with, who you are, and there's a bit of a sincerity in it, and people actually warm up to that, because as humans we all connect. We know when things are being impactful, when someone is being really sincere, when someone's very really honest, or when someone is being a bit devious. I think there's an element within
Yeah.
our heart that we kind of know, and when you're in touch with yourself, you'll be able to pick that up quite quickly, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you actually explained it so brilliantly. It's amazing, basically. As nowadays we're seeing that impact is often confused with influence, and a lot of it's basically because of the social media has come, and everybody's trying to confuse the word impact with influence, and then again, influence is now linked with the fame or something, and
Yeah.
people are actually unable to uh, find the true meaning of the impact, influence, and the fame. And that's what I think is the main confusion that they feel, that what they want. A lot of people get fascinated by the influence or the fame, and that is what they have been chasing for. For
Yeah.
example, if I had a like conversation with a lot of people, and they actually they apparently they said that they want to create an impact, but when we actually have a conversation, that they are more into getting fame only. So it's
Mm.
something, and I would just like to point out here that if person is just want to have a fame or something like just linked with their desire, it's never going to create an impact, because in order to create an impact, as you very rightly pointed out, that it needs to go beyond than ourselves. We need to think that how we can actually add a meaning to someone's life or add some value to the people who are living around us. And it start from one step, or I would say just one person. And as you actually said, that the intention should be very sincere,
Mhm.
instead of like devious. And I would say that devious is something that if you want only something for yourself, you would never be able to. You may get that success, but it would never create an impact, because it would be short lived, because you use it, you consume it, and that's all. But if you
Mhm.
want to give something to society, or that's how it creates a meaningful impact, and that's how it creates a ripple effect, and that or you can say the domino effect, that just creates a chain. And then if you add, for example, if you help one person with sincere intention, and that person again, you change the person's life, and then again that person will go and do something good for the other. So that's how, it creates an impact. And for that, one needs to think beyond then, their own self, and think in terms of that how they can actually be beneficial for the society. And I think
Definitely.
that's what you've been doing throughout your life. Yeah.
Trying my
Yeah.
best. I mean, I would like to maybe just to close up this, I was going to say like for me, the difference between like fame and impact is like you invite people around to your house and you give them a box of chewing gum, or you invite people around to the house and you prepare a meal and they eat. As you know, if when you chew a gum, it's very sweet at the beginning, but within a few seconds, it's bitter and you just want to throw it out of your mouth. Whereas if you cook a proper meal and you invite people around, the amount of effort, people really appreciate what you've done for them. That's probably the
Yeah.
anecdote that I would like to use between fame and influence and impact.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful example. I think that's how it is, because that's how we can add some effort, and that's how people can remember, that you
Yeah.
have done something for them. And
Yeah.
so if we think about the impact, do you think that it's linked with sort of a purpose in life? For example, in order to, as we are talking about impact, so as you mentioned
Yeah.
that we need to find out our passion, we need to find out ourselves. So do you think it has something to do with the purpose in life? It is important to, like, for example, if someone is genuinely want to create an impact, is it important for that person to realize their purpose first, and then, or it just goes randomly, how it comes basically?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm right or wrong, but I believe that it starts with you knowing your purpose. I know a lot of people always, say, "Oh, I don't know what I'm passionate about. I don't know what my purpose
Yeah.
is." And this concept about find, the thing is that it's not the find is not actually out there. It's actually I think it's within you.
Yeah.
I just think sometimes if people, I just tell people just take 10 or 15 minutes in a day, or even if it's a week, just to think about what you want to do. Again, I was reading a book yesterday, and the author says that he actually reads obituaries every morning. Some people
Okay.
might think that's morbid, but it's an American graphic designer. He said no, because he wants to read people who had this. Because in obituaries, you always have the good stuff people did in their life. He goes, oh, yeah, this person did. They lived their life. They died at whatever age, and they did this. So it can't. It's like a wake up call for him every morning to say, okay, how do I want my obituary to be? Because one of the things that we always forget, and the human being likes to forget, is that we're all gonna die. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about that. And even
Yeah.
Steve Jobs said, I don't know if you know, and Steve Jobs said that the fact that he
Yeah.
knows that he's gonna die one day is what makes him think about what legacy does he want to leave. Of course, he's passed away now, I think almost 10 years. But even he was thinking like that. And
Yeah.
so I think in terms of, your purpose doesn't have to be like, oh, you want to have a coffee shop, or you want to, invent the next best, I don't know, electric car. It's not about that. Are you
Yeah.
solving a particular problem, or what do
Yeah.
you think you can contribute towards? So for me, my purpose, that I was related to this quote that I don't know who said it. The rent, the rent you pay in this life is your
Yeah.
service to others. Because
Yeah.
there's 7 billion of us, and I just think we're not created as islands, as an ecosystem. And I love that concept, because I think also back to what the Prophet Muhammad said, that leadership is servitude to others. And I love that concept of
Yeah.
servitude. Even my surname Abdul Malik means serving the king, for example. And I think that, so when I frame this purpose of I want to have a positive impact on 1 million people's lives in the next 5 years, for me it just resonates. Like, everything is servitude. Whether I have a cafe, I'm still serving people. I want to serve people the best coffee. I want to serve them the best cakes. Or whether I say, okay, I want to create an index so that everybody in the world knows that what is the most prevailing disease that exists in their country, which is what I did when I was director of the think tank in Riyadh, the FI Institute. Everything is servitude. And I think from that purpose, I just feel more whole in my life. I think if you know about your purpose and about what your contribution is, the impact will be more impactful, not just for yourself, because I think if you do something and your heart is not in it, after a while it becomes heavy, and
Yeah.
you might give up on it, or you might get angry one day and say to someone, "Oh, I'm doing this for you. Can't you appreciate it?" And if you do, I
Yeah.
think if you do that, then there's something missing. I mean, it might sound idealistic, But I always think do something because you really want to do, not because you're trying to impress anybody or you're trying
Yeah.
to get some kind of reward from it. Of course, we're all humans. We always want to be patted on the back. But I think
Yeah.
if you always looking to get appreciation from other people, you will eventually be disappointed.
Yes, absolutely.
so,
Very
so I
true.
think I think you should focus a lot on what you really want to do, and I think the impact from that way will come about. And you don't have to count. The most important thing at the end of the day, I think, is really the journey. There's no end to it. So, oh, you might even people say to me, well, "How do you know when you've reached 1 million people?" I don't care about reaching the target. I just set myself as a
Yeah.
goal. Whether it's
Yeah.
1 million people next year, or in 10 years, or it's 5 million people, or 10 million, I'm not counting. It's-
Yeah.
only God knows what it is. It just helps me to have some kind of focus. And what I've experienced since I sort of articulated that goal last year, I've started to find lots of people who I'm meeting that say, "Oh wow, I want to help you reach that goal." In fact, forget about 5 years. I want to help you reach that goal next year. And I'm like, "Oh
Yeah.
wow." I mean, I didn't. It just, even having this talk with you, for example,
Yeah.
it's one of those. I think it's part of the journey.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
It's,
absolutely. Like if we have the longer goal, we need to have sort of more strength, and that's why passion and purpose comes in. Like because life is a big, like it's a journey, and it's a long journey, I would say. And what happens is, what I've seen is like people usually, if they are not driven by the passion, they are not able to achieve that long-term goal, because either they like settle for less because they don't have that much courage to, or to actually put in extra effort, or to go extra mile when they are already drained or exhausted. And I think the passion or the purpose gives you the extra boost to give extra boost or energy we usually receive from our passion to go extra mile. Because the thing is that there are lots of distraction if we just look around, and as you mentioned that, like even like during the course of life, we have families, we have career, we have jobs, we have societal pressure, and lots and lot, and everybody sort of get lost in those pressures, those sort of whatever, like they think that it's too much for them. And then that is the point when, if they have realized their purpose or passion, then they can keep them focused on their track, and that's how they can achieve their goal. And once they achieve their goal, that is how they can actually create a meaningful impact, not only in their lives but in the people who are living around them. And that's how I feel that that's how they create an impact in the
yeah.
true sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point that you made, because I think, in terms of people who say they have a purpose or passion, they give up. To me, I
Yeah.
think it's doesn't make any sense in a way, because I think that your purpose should be linked to who you are as a as
Yeah.
a as an as a human being, as an individual. So why would you give up on yourself?
Yeah.
It's difficult for you.
Absolutely.
I was going to say, when I had a cafe in Cape Town about 10 years ago, which is one of my passions, was to have a cafe, and I always tell everybody, for 3 years I never woke up saying I'm going to work.
Yeah.
I had to be at my cafe every day at 6:30 a.m. And sometimes
Yeah.
in Cape Town it actually gets quite cold. But there was no, oh, I'm going to work. It's just like, oh, I'm just going to live my life. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't make any money from my cafe, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It was just like, just get up and do it and go and be of
Yeah.
service and just do it.
Yeah.
And so that passion was like the engine that kept me going. And it wasn't like it wasn't a sense of giving up. Yes, I had to leave in the end because we had other issues, but it's still in my head to say, okay, one of these days I would like to revisit that. Maybe I'll do it differently.
Yeah.
But it's still something I just want to be, of service to people in some manner. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. This is something that, it keeps us going. It keeps us focused in one direction.
Yeah.
So I think that is what is really, really important, and that is what matters is that if somebody really wants to create an impact, they actually need to step back and have sort of a one-to-one conversation with themselves, find out who they are, what they want in their life, and that is what I think that is what the world needs, because we have already so many people like following the herd, copying others, but the only way that actually you can stand out is basically you need to find who you are, how you're different from other, and embrace it wholeheartedly. Not just saying, because most of the time people say that, like we have seen a lot of people with disabilities also, but when they embrace their weaknesses and strengths wholeheartedly, that is how then they are able to impact and in their
Yeah.
lives and in the others as well. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a good point you said about disabilities because yesterday, again, this book I was reading, I couldn't believe it. There's actually someone, this guy's famous in America. He's a blind film critic.
Oh my God.
And I'm thinking to
Quite
myself,
inspiring, actually.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
trying to fathom that, but apparently he's really popular in the States. I'm going to actually look for
Uh-huh.
his website. And I
It's-
feel myself, so he's a film critic. He doesn't actually watch the movies because he can't see it because he's blind, but he's
Yeah.
still a film critic. So he's obviously using whether he's listening to he listen to the sound and he can criticize a movie. But you see, that's someone that people will say, oh, how can this guy, he can't even watch movies. How can he film critic? But he didn't let that stop him. He's still doing that. I mean, that's
Very, I
amazing.
mean, that's amazing. It's
Yeah.
inspiring, definitely. So,
Yeah.
do you really believe that if a person has a dream that he wants to change the world, do you think he can change the one person, or he needs always the support of the other, or how can he do that? If someone just has this passion, what do you think? What needs to be done by him to actually change the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm like just going back to the example like I talked about, like how people I'm beginning to meet people that actually want to help me. I think sometimes you just have to be the spark. So, for example, the idea of when I meet with people and I say, "Oh," and people say to me, "What do you want to do, Lameen? What are you doing? We know you like coffee, but what else are you doing?" I say, "Oh, I want to create a platform to crowdsource ideas to impact the world." And I've set myself a target of doing that for 1 million people in the next 5 years. I said, "Well, actually, I've got 3 years left because I said that early last year." So,
Okay.
and I said, "Oh, wow, I would like to help you. Tell me more about that." So yeah, maybe I'm the spark, but then obviously I can't do that by myself. So I
Yeah.
think, and I think when you start that journey, you find like-minded people that can start coming onto
Absolutely.
that platform, and say, "Oh yeah, actually I want to help you as well." Like even if you look at the iPhone, I remember even when the touch screen, like when you touch everything. In fact, my brother, when he came to visit us in Vienna many years ago, he had a phone that actually had a touch screen. So even though people assume that iPhone started it, they didn't actually start that. But Steve Jobs was like, no, I want to do something different. I want to have only one home button. And all the scientists said, it's
Yes.
impossible. You have to have three home buttons. He
Yeah.
was, he was just trying to make life easier for people. That's all.
Yeah.
And then the scientists that he encouraged, they was like, okay, eventually they said, yes, we can actually finally have one home button. He's actually just trying to make life easier for other people. So in
Yeah.
terms of this journey, I think once you start, you find like-minded people that actually want to help you, actually want to be on your path, who want to help share your story to different people, who actually say, yo, I want to be part of that journey.
Yeah.
So sometimes it just takes one person to be that spark, but definitely you can't do it all by yourself. I don't think that's possible.
Yeah.
Even if you
That's
look at even if you look at the great men of the world or great women in the world, they always had a team at that moment
absolutely.
in time that supported them and said, "Yeah, we like your vision. We want to support your vision as well to
Yeah.
have take us from A to B or A to Z." So I think it's usually you need one person to spark it off, but I think definitely along the journey there'll be other
Yeah.
people that will participate and
Yeah.
help you with the journey.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're absolutely right that when we actually have certain goal in mind, or we start meeting like-minded people, and then they definitely help us to reach the goal. And at the same time, I would just add that it's also very important to have your circle with the people who support you to achieve your goal. So
Mhm.
you develop a community, and
Yeah.
at the same time, if if you think that people are dragging you down, you also, it is equally important to actually create a distance from the negative people as well. Like, if people are trying to pull you down or something. So the journey is always full of ups and downs, like meeting with different
Yes.
people. So like, yeah.
Yeah, just like life.
Yeah, that's true. So we definitely could go on and talk about for hours on this topic, but I'm afraid like we're reaching to the end of the show. So there are lots of good comments also about the impact is like unexpected result are meaningful and permanent. Yes, absolutely, Zanachari. And there are also so yes, I would say that. Like since we are reaching to the end, so maybe like what one advice would you like to give to our audience to create a lasting impression?
Um, I always like to say, I always like to this concept of leadership. So I'll just say, know your know yourself and lead the life that you want, because nobody is better at leading your life than yourself.
Yeah.
So I believe everybody is a leader. I'm not saying everybody should be president or CEO, but I think in terms of yourself, you
Yeah.
have your own unique identity, and I really believe that if you want to have change within yourself and others around you, you could just be like even 5 or 10 people around you, or just even whether it's your spouse or your kids or
Yeah.
anybody. I think that once you settle on yourself, then that change will manifest itself around, and people will start to say, "Oh, I like to be around this person because this person has a
Yeah.
positive energy." For example, they want to do different things, and people will get attracted to you, like honeys and bees. People will
Yeah.
get attracted to you, and once you do that, even if we're not talking about, it doesn't have to be 10 people or 100 people. Even if it's 2 or 3 people's life you touch, it's still an impact. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
yeah,
They should never actually confuse the term impact with fame or something really big. If
no,
basically impact is all about when you are able to give a meaningful value, or you can add value to a single person's life, and that's enough. That is like you're creating an impact. Being a housewife, being a job seeker, or any person you are in your life. It's not
yeah,
something about, to achieve a bigger title or something. It's not basically impact is nothing like that.
yeah,
Impact is just when you add a simple value to even one person's life, and that's it. It could be
yeah,
your home or it could be anyone.
yes,
So, yeah. So thank you so much for joining us today, and
pleasure.
it was a lovely discussion, and even I myself learned a lot from you today.
Thanks,
So yes,
thanks,
it was
Andre.
great, and I'm sure our audience also must have gained a lot of value from our discussion today. So all of those who joined today, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for making this conversation lively and posting your comments here. So thank you so much, and have a good rest of the day.
Yeah,
And bye
you
bye.
too. All right, take care.